Now, in my case, it's like, well, I've got the people to build with. I've got the IP that I need. I can get more of if I need. I have a customer base, and we have a community here of people who understand what it means, and it's much bigger. We have a core community, and then there's a much bigger global community that we can get back to.
All right, everybody, the show that you've all been waiting for. Here today, I've got the delightful CrackBerry Kevin here in the studio virtually because he's got a plan or a self started mission to bring back BlackBerry. And I talked about this the other day and told y'all he was going to be here on the channel. So now we can talk about this stuff and hopefully answer some of your questions, go more in depth on these things, and talk about it.
Thanks for having me, Adam. I like to think of it as a dream, but you got to start with a dream and then you have a plan, and we do have a plan coming together. So I think for anybody listening, by the time we get through this, they'll have a little bit of faith in what we're working towards. But it's obviously not all in these hands. It takes a lot of people to bring something like this together. But I don't think it's crazy talk, so I'm looking forward to this. Thanks for having me today. So proud of you, too, for picking up the BlackBerry torch and keeping the content flowing for all the BlackBerry fans out there. Because we know I went away from the picture, so it's fun to be back. But my virtual hat off to you, sir.
You know, it's interesting, and I was thinking about this before we started, because all these years, because you created CrackBerry, and you were the gold standard of all things Berry for a very long time. And then I actually started, I don't know if a lot of people know this or not, I used to write a lot of articles in the community review section on CrackBerry. And I think probably some of them are still there if they didn't get scrubbed with the refresh. But I just decided to make my own channel and then start talking about it. And then I just kind of picked up where a lot of other people left off, and now here we are.
I love it. I mean, I think you did. You're living the dream now, right? And I think for a lot of people, myself included right now, which we can talk about later, the thought of content is a difficult one. And the key to success in the industry of media is to get started and don't stop. And if you do it long enough, eventually you find your way. But most people give up. They don't get to 20 videos, never mind 200 videos, and the dream falls apart. So I think you've done an awesome job of finding your path and just getting going. That was it. You did it. So super proud of you, and fun to watch you over the years. It's been a pleasure.
I think I'm at like 2,800 videos and counting now, because I make videos every day, sometimes twice.
Add zeros then, far beyond 200. At least 200 BlackBerry ones, I think.
I'm sure. And I still have so many people who have been following since the BlackBerry days, and I always love talking to them. They're like, I'll talk about a BlackBerry video, and they're like, oh, we haven't had one forever. I've been here since the beginning, and there's some wonderful people that have been supported for so long. But that's what I originally started my channel as. I remember I've said this a few times, but I told my wife when I started the channel 7 years ago. I told her, I said, my 5-year plan is, after 5 years, I'd like to have 20,000 subscribers, and hopefully BlackBerry will send me phones. And then there's no BlackBerry.
Well, let's try to fix that, because you crushed the other goal. So we got to bring back. We have to rebuild the world here a little bit. So
yes,
love it.
And I talked.
But started with a dream. You just nailed it, though. You got to start with a dream. And then you take action, and then crazy things can happen. So
yes, and apparently us BlackBerry people are just persistent.
We don't stop, won't stop.
So I talked a little bit about this. I did like a kind of a introductory video last week to get people kind of primed to talk about it. What you started off so far and what you were sharing was the Bring Back BlackBerry petition webpage. So if you want to talk about that some.
Yeah, so that's something that popped up a little bit out of nowhere. Maybe a month ago, and yeah, I built it. Didn't really tell anybody I built it at the start because I just wanted to see what would happen. And obviously 2025 has been this weird year where BlackBerry is popping up again, not from anything the company is doing, but from people finding their way back to BlackBerries. And it's this Gen Z TikTok phenomenon that happened where younger people have decided they're too addicted to their iPhones. they need to detach, and they're looking for ways to do it. And buying used BlackBerries off eBay as a digital disconnect device became a thing. And for me, I'm like, it's kind of crazy because I don't think the experience is that good, and what's going to work or not is pretty minimal and hit and miss. I'm like, I don't know, but I'm not going to argue with it. And, of course, what happens on social blows up. So all of a sudden, you're starting to see a lot of people report on the news that Gen Z wants BlackBerry back. And, I'd say that was one of the catalysts that got me going on to, I think the timing is right for us to take a community-led approach to bringing BlackBerry back versus what others have tried in the most recent years, where it's a corporate-led one, for better or for worse. And that was a big part of it. And then I think the bigger thing is, in some ways, I've been working on making this happen for years now. So for those who have followed me or not followed me, the quick thing would be from 2007 to 2019. CBK was here and relatively active on the interwebs and on crackberry.com and on places like YouTube. Sometimes I go a little bit quiet because if CrackBerry was my passion to some extent, my day job was building Mobile Nations, which was a tech media publisher that outside of CrackBerry owned websites like Android Central and iMore. We worked with and had a great community of tech creators in there, including Mr. Mobile, who was born out of Mobile Nations. And after and when TCL happened with the BlackBerry licensing agreement in 17 leading into 2018, 19.
I think 2017 is when the Key 1 came out. Yeah. Right.
So CES in January 2017 is when I touched probably a prototype of the Key 1. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's hope here. This could really happen. And I went all in again on CrackBerry, on BlackBerry, and really wanted to see TCL succeed. And even at that point, I actually worked as a strategic marketing partner with TCL. I was on stage when the Key 1 was unveiled, helping MC the event. I worked with their marketing team, and we did things like helped run their social media. A lot of the videos and posts you've seen from BlackBerry Mobile through the years, that came from the studio division of Mobile Nation. So you could think of them as a client and strategic partner of ours. And for me, I actually got to peek behind the world of BlackBerry from the manufacturing and marketing side, because prior to that, I was like you, Adam, right? I'm on the media side. I'm a hardcore fan and customer, but I was also tech media, tech creator, journalist. I'd never use the word journalist to describe myself, but a person with opinions who has a lot of passion is probably what I'd say. So
it's just hard to fit on a badge.
It's hard to fit on a badge, I think I go now with OG tech blogger and creator, maybe. But TCL achieved a level of success. The Key 1 was a good start. The Key 2 Black Edition was really good. Key 2 LE, they started to do the motion. But obviously, the numbers they were able to achieve were not enough from the BlackBerry and TCL perspective for it to next level, right? And that's almost another podcast in itself for us to dive into it. But when that happened and then finally dissolved that relationship, to me, I was like, that's it. I don't think there's going to ever be another BlackBerry phone. The writing to me was on the wall that John Chen wanted to take BlackBerry in a whole other direction, and phones would go into the past. And I actually sold CrackBerry in 2019, plus the parent company Mobile Nations, of which I was a co-founder and chief operating officer, chief content officer. And I was out of the game, and we sold to Future Publishing out of the UK, which is a publicly traded publisher. They own a lot of different brands in the space. So I went into the sunset and took a little bit of a break. I worked for them for a year after the acquisition, and by May 2020, I was fully out. I turned 40. The pandemic was happening, and I just, after 15 years of go, I'm like, it's a nice little break for myself.
Well,
and
I had
like
me, and you can't sit still for more than 5 minutes.
Well, the first 6 months were great, and then by 2021, I was starting to go antsy. And one of the crazy things was, in hindsight, I would do it differently, but I signed a 3-year non-compete, 4-year non-solicit as part of that deal, and everything I had was gone, right? So even my CrackBerry Kevin Instagram, Twitter account, YouTube channel, all those were actually owned by Future, and I couldn't use them. I couldn't even actually do content of any type during that time. So I couldn't even start a Twitter account about anything really. Like it was a lockdown thing, and
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you can't just sell all your stuff and then be like, oh, I'll start another one. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, it makes sense.
Makes sense.
I think
mentally sucks when you start to go stir crazy though.
Oh yeah, and especially when you're used to having a voice and used to being able to be vocal about things you're passionate about, and then it's like, I gotta shut up.
Gotta shut up. Nothing. Nobody. Yeah, can't talk. Nobody to talk with or ruminate about with ideas about. And it was a tough year. So 2021 was really tough. And living in Canada through the pandemic and everything was also tough. We were pretty extreme on kind of like our limitations we had. And I think like a lot of people, the doom scrolling kicked in. I spent way too much time just scrolling social media. Honestly, too much indulgence in just eating, drinking, watching TV, not enough going on in my life. And in 2022, like late 2021, I actually got very lucky. And Future reached back out to me and said, would you like to buy CrackBerry back? And I was like, oh, this is interesting. What's happening here? And the reality was that was such a big old website that we filled up with millions of posts and forum threads and things for years, that it made more sense for them to delete it than migrate it from our old tech platform onto theirs.
Oh, there was so much. I mean, I don't know if I've ever had this conversation with you before, because I mean, CrackBerry, back in the day, a long time before I ever started, years before I started doing content. I mean, from probably the 9800, before BlackBerry 10 came out, I was in the forums all the time. Like my first thing I would do when I would wake up in the morning is open CrackBerry. And
exactly.
I would be in the community place. I'd be in their forums talking with people all day. And then BlackBerry 10 was such excitement. And I mean, it was that was my website. That was my homepage. That's what I did.
It was the homepage. I love that habit where we used to visit the websites we wanted to visit versus just getting fed content all the time, which is what we evolved to. And whatever free time you have, social media will suck up all of it without issue, right? You never,
for sure.
you never finish catching up on your social media feeds. You can go for years and you'll never get to the end. Mm-hmm. And so a couple things happened, right? So end of 2021, I actually ended up buying back CrackBerry, and I was like, wow, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's better than doing nothing. And in early 2022, I put up the website and said, hey, I'm going to relaunch CrackBerry. Literally, that article was not followed by many others at all, and other than Onward Mobility, because at that point in time, there was new hope that Onward Mobility was going to release a 5G BlackBerry. I was kind of shocked by all this, even being a realm of possibility. But once I kind of put the CrackBerry Kevin hat back on in early 2022, it didn't take very long to see that, oh, this is not going to happen. No device is coming to a market. This deal is done. And then, shocked as I was that BlackBerry did a licensing deal with Onward Mobility, after that, I was like, that's it. It is really over.
It was tough. And I get a lot of people that ask you about it all the time, because I was under a non-disclosure agreement on stuff for a long time. But, I mean, ultimately, what happened there, at least to my knowledge, was just the funding. Once the COVID happened, the funding all fell through. They had a bunch of funders lined up, and then after that happened, there was just such a retraction, and a lot of people that were seemingly committed were like, nah, we're not doing this. And then they were just trying to get funding to get it to go to start making them. I mean, they were ready to go. They were ready to start making them, but they couldn't get the initial phone started to manufacture.
Yeah, and I think too the way the deal was structured, licensing fees come due, and again, I feel like, John Chen, the CEO at that time, he already knew he wanted to just separate BlackBerry from the hardware story. So I think, you have the option as the CEO of the company to probably have leniency or to be like, oh, here's the agreement you signed, give me money, it's due now. And, you kind of know which way things went in hindsight.
There was not a lot of initiative on BlackBerry to support that initiative at that time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, okay, so CrackBerry Kevin's back, but CrackBerry Kevin's synonymous with one thing, BlackBerry. And now my hope of 5G BlackBerries is absolutely gone, and that's over. So at that point in time, in my head, I started thinking like, well, if this is ever going to happen again, I don't want to leave it to chance. I want to try to start things, try to take action. The same thing we talked about content earlier in the episode here, or earlier in the video. You just got to get things moving. You won't have all the answers figured out, and you don't know what's going to happen down the road, but let's start moving. And the first thing that happened was the opportunity to work with a few people and partners, and not on the hardware side, but on the software side, start building let's call it a spiritual successor to the BlackBerry OS. And that became a company I co-founded and invested in. I was the first investor into it, called Apostrophe. Yep. So Apostrophe is a privacy-focused operating system. It's built out of Switzerland. It's a proper Swiss-based company, which means it's adhering to like Swiss data sovereignty laws, privacy laws, and everything. It's like their banks. Yeah, they are truly Swiss in the nature. I mean, laws can always change with time, but it is your ideal situation or ideal place to be situated out of if you want to build something privacy-focused. And that project got going in 2022. And really interesting people involved, really interesting mandate. And part of what I did was started going through my Rolodex of BlackBerry contacts to see who I could bring into that project, with a mindset that maybe this will go someplace. And I know how hard it is. Like, honestly, when I wrote the investment check, I was like, I'm going to give it a less than 1%. I'm pretty sure I'm kissing this money goodbye. But at the same time, I was like, honestly, where I see the world going, the need for something like this to be an option on the market done properly has never been bigger. And if you think about the original BlackBerry, the pillars that BlackBerry stood for, privacy, communication, messaging, data security, those pillars are still fundamental, I think, to this day. And it's like BlackBerry's original premise of how they came to market as a professional device, and then they got pulled into the consumer smartphone market. If they were to be back at the way they started originally, the timing would be great right now. But different story. But that started.
There's been such a big pendulum swing, because originally when we had BlackBerry, that was it. I mean, there was no idea of this open ecosystem or apps, also the technology wasn't there. And as it progressed, and we got the iPhone, and then we got Android, and then we have we can have everything. You just have to give up your privacy.
Exactly, right? I mean, the smartphone turned into this Swiss Army knife, right? Which just, thanks to apps and just the performance of the product, think of all the industries that got completely disrupted by the modern day, iPhone, Pixel, etc., right? Whether it's cameras, whether it's the calendar on your wall, like just everything. And purpose-built products, I think, often deliver the best experience for what they're intended to do. So, I think there's this notion now of, do you own your technology, or does the technology own you? And that pendulum has swung really far to the side of the tech kind of owns us. And, in 2021 there, when I was going through my version of tech addiction, it was actually switching to this for a few months, the Punkt MPO, the Punkt, I think it's Punkt German for period. MPO2. But going to this was digital cold turkey for me.
I could do that.
I didn't do it for too long, but a couple months with this kind of got me off the addiction, got me off the dopamine addiction to my screen, and I started to have a much more mindful experience with my phone again. And at that time, Apostrophe starts to build, and it got things going, right? And then working on Apostrophe, I started to talk to more people in the industry, and as we worked on Apostrophe, that's one entity with its own customer base and everything, then the idea for Clicks was born. And, Clicks, everybody I think watching is probably familiar with it at this point, is our, smart accessory, smart keyboard case for iPhone and now Android phones. Yeah. And that took me with a different entity down the hardware path. And Clicks is its own company with its own portfolio of products in development. What everybody has seen publicly is kind of, whether they think of it as the tip of the iceberg or just part of the strategy. There's more to come from Clicks. But if you think about that successor to BlackBerry and wanting to bring back BlackBerry, I've been tackling it from two sides already with real businesses, right?
But the other nice thing is, is as you've had success with clicks and y'all expanded out from not just the iPhone but also to the Pixel and now with the Motorola, the MotoBerry, idea,
Yeah.
which is so cool.
Razorberry is a ton of fun, right?
Yeah,
Just
Razorberry. I keep calling the MotoBerry. Uh, it's something that shows that there's still viability out there for people who want the benefits of a physical keyboard. And a lot of the discussion I get with people is like, why would you want to type on that again? It's like, because I can type on it. Because when I push on the buttons, it does what I want it to do. There's no autocorrect. I can do it without looking at the screen. You develop your muscle memory. You get that enjoying tactile experience. And you get shortcuts. You get menu options. There's so much stuff you can do outside of just, oh, let me get this little pop-up screen space on my phone.
Yeah.
Where I
It's
can
about
deal with
it's about that certainty, right? I think one of the things we've seen in our customer base the past year and a half with clicks is there's different extremes of people, right? And it's an interesting product because we will get 5-star reviews from people who basically say, thank you, thank you, thank you. I will never use my phone again without clicks on it. You've given me what I needed. And then there's other people who are like, I thought I was going to like it. I tried it. Maybe I'm okay with my touchscreen device. And I think there's this notion in business when you're building products. It's sort of like, are you building a vitamin or are you building a pain pill? And when people have pain, the solution you give them is worth a lot, right? And they will thank you for it. And if you give somebody a vitamin because they're feeling okay, but maybe they'll feel a little bit better, their value system's a little bit different. And for clicks, depending who you are, it's a pain pill and people are desperately helpful. And for some people are like, oh, I guess maybe I was okay. But one of the best pieces of feedback I got around typing on keyboards recently was the difference is it's a single point of focus that you can trust. So like when you're typing with clicks or any physical keyboard and you're a competent typer, you know you're going to type in the right spot, the right word's going to come out, and you're not going to have to autocorrect it. Versus maybe if you're on a touchscreen device, you're kind of focusing on tapping in the right spot. You're also worried that it's going to get autocorrected wrong, which happens still too much in this day and age.
The predictive text in the algorithm, it thinks, oh, you meant to hit the V, not the C.
Exactly. And then you're still focused on what you want to say. So with a physical keyboard, you think about what you want to say and you execute it with certainty versus sort of being, well, I want to say this, now I got to tap it right, and I got to not get autocorrected. And, I love voice dictation as well. On my desktop, I used a lot, for example, if I'm talking to ChatGPT, because we can talk at 200 words a minute.
Right.
Maybe on a 10-finger keyboard, I type at 120 words a minute. I'm pretty fast. And on one of these, I'm typing at, 50 to 70 words a minute as a competent typer. But the thing is, when I'm composing on a phone, I can type at the rate I'm composing in my head, and it works really well. When I'm doing voice dictation at 200 words a minute, well, guess what? I can make the words appear really fast on the screen, and then I spend the next 3 minutes fixing everything that is absolutely unsendable. So I think it's always about the right tool for the right job, and there will always be a large group of people on the planet who I think just understand the benefits of buttons, and there's more discovering it for the first time.
Well, I think, and I mean, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I don't think BlackBerry ever failed because of the physical keyboard. BlackBerry failed because they did not have the app support, they did not have the social media, they had a more closed-off system, and people couldn't get what they wanted, and people just kind of started migrating away because it's like, I mean, yeah, there were compromises, which you had a smaller screen and things like that, because they weren't built for the modern smartphone age that was emerging, but it wasn't the keyboard. That killed it. And so there's so many people that still like the idea of having a physical keyboard with a modern smartphone.
100%. And I think, you look at other products, right? Like I'm sitting at a computer and my keyboard is buttons. If I have an iPad or a tablet with a keyboard, that keyboard accessory is not made of glass, it's made of buttons.
Exactly.
And I mean, to put buttons on a phone is not a crazy thing. It was just Steve Jobs and the way he introduced the iPhone to the world. He declared a cultural war on buttons that has haunted guys like us to this day, that we have to re-explain the story all the time. But then people understand it once you tell it to them in a matter-of-fact way. And if they try it and they, build the skill of typing, they really appreciate it.
It's not for everybody. Just like everybody doesn't drive a Prius, everybody doesn't drive a truck, everybody doesn't drive. It's an option. It's a choice.
Yes.
And it's a very driven way to use your phone that
Yeah.
makes sense for people who are, I think, primarily communicators and people
Yeah.
who are business professionals, people who value that tactility, that accuracy, the multitasking capabilities, and the other stuff that it brings to it. We don't just look at a phone as a way to use TikTok.
Exactly. And I think you nailed it, right? Like the people who find the biggest benefit of a physical QWERTY are the ones who are sending a lot of messages on a daily basis, right? And by extension of that, they're probably also receiving a lot of messages on a daily
Oh, for
basis.
sure.
But they're sending and they don't want to wait to get back to their computer to send it. And with maybe their touchscreen device, they feel like they just can't operate the same way. And some of our biggest power user customers that we've met over the past year and a half, that's what we've seen. We met if you think about the old TV show Entourage, and you had the character of Ari Gold, the movie agent.
Yeah.
One of our let's call him VIP customers. We just love the guy. He's a sports agent in the world of tennis, and literally he is just so thankful for Clicks because he switched to iPhone. He's an iPhone user, and he is this guy who literally needs to send 300 emails a day. And he's just a machine on Clicks now, and life-changing for him.
I have a buddy. Well, I've developed a friendship with over the last couple of years, who's a sports analyst who very much values and still uses his Key 2 to type on all the time. Yeah. And maybe he does have an iPhone for virtue of you have to have certain things nowadays. But yeah, he's like, I hammer all this stuff out. I sent him a spare Key 2 because his started going bad. I was like, here, man, I'll send you my other one because I had two of them. But yeah, I still talk to him. He's like, hey, what's this going on with the new BlackBerry thing you're talking about? Like, there are people who care. And the thing is, I'm not going to get into the market viability and what your plan is and all these other things. You can speak for yourself on that. But my opinion has always been, this isn't something we're ever going to have 20% market share, 10% market share.
Correct.
But if you can get a couple 100,000 people, you have a successful business and you have a product that meets people's needs.
I think you nailed it. I think it's a different era now. It's a different time. What you need to think about is if BlackBerry comes back today as a phone, and you see this logo and you see it on a device, who are they building it for, right? And is it the same audience that was there 10, 15, 20 years ago, or is it a different audience? And what are their expectations? And I think one of the big starting points is the expectation is that it's their primary smartphone? Are you competing now against an iPhone and a Samsung or a Pixel for that SIM card and primary number to move over? Are you thinking of it more as a messaging companion device to start with, maybe as it proves its way up to maybe a future flagship down the road? So I think as you started this episode and you said, here's the plan for bringing back BlackBerry, Kevin's going to tell it to you. It's like, well, let's start at the start, right?
Yeah.
My dream is I want to be the guy on the planet who absolutely gets that brand back into the community and brings devices that rock that logo again to the world. Now, do I need the BlackBerry brand to make the businesses I'm currently operating in successful? No. In the world of enterprise, government, wealthy private families on the software side, apostrophe is tearing it up and growing there. And it's been a very behind the scenes thing because we're not trying to sell it to consumers right now. It's cutting its teeth, proving its chops in that world because that's what really matters. And then Clicks, like you said, Clicks is well known. A lot of people are using it. It has its own portfolio of growth. I'm not going to talk about what's coming next that you guys haven't seen yet. You'll have to stay tuned for that. But Clicks has its own roadmap for years to come, and we can execute against that.
But it's important because
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's important because with that, even if tomorrow there were a new BlackBerry showed up and you could go buy it, there would still be people who would want to have a physical keyboard on their iPhone because they don't want a BlackBerry, and that's what's the brilliant thing of the Clicks keyboards accessory case.
Yeah.
Because you can have your cake and eat it too with the platform that you want.
I think you're right. There's been more QWERTY alternatives coming to the market the last couple of years. Obviously, Unihertz filled in the gap after TCL. Now in the last year, we've seen more, sometimes more digital minimalist devices, some that are trying to come out now that are maybe speaking more to a BlackBerry alternative. And it's awesome to see these projects come to life. But I think the ability to go from project to scaled company is really, really difficult, especially when you're making people give up the flagship phone they have right now. Which is why I think the click strategy you've seen of we're going to bring buttons to you on the device you currently have was the ideal starting point for a product like this and bringing buttons back. But I also think, having watched the market closely, there is that hardcore market, and you could think of these as the people who probably owned BlackBerry Key 1s or Key 2s, probably the people listening to this episode right now, a lot of them, where they want the purpose-built device, right? They want something that when they see it and they get in their hands, it just feels right. And it's not just the feature set, but it's got all of the values and the warm and fuzzies that a BlackBerry used to bring you, right? And to me, that was not just the logo. It was things like just an object I want to look at, right? It's a beautiful looking product. It has a premium aesthetic to it. It feels, I wouldn't call it, it's not luxury, but
this is luxury right here.
That's luxury. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. And with a luxury price tag. That at a better price point is still luxury, though. It's I love that phone. That's a great device.
This is the most beautiful BlackBerry ever made. And I made a video the other day, or actually I think I did a TikTok video talking about $2,000 phones, because we have the Z Fold with Samsung, which is a $2,000 phone, and this was a $2,000 phone 10 years ago.
Exactly.
And
exactly. that probably, I don't know if that was a $2,000 phone at a BOM cost, but it definitely carried a brand premium with the Porsche design branding.
Oh, yeah.
That was covered a lot of marketing padding in there. But your point is right, that it's there. And I think it's a different piece of the market you're going to, but the why people buy it and who's going to buy it is a little bit different story. And I think, building something that is worthy of the BlackBerry brand again would be really, really interesting. And for me, I think, if you one of the things I've seen since launching the Bring Back BlackBerry campaign and watching the feedback from users is, for some people, it's just the keyboard story. It's like, yes, give me that product that has that keyboard and in hand, it feels right. And for others, they say, hey, Kevin, keep in mind here, it's not just the hardware and the logo. You need to actually focus on the software side. And I've seen so many passionate people pop up, and there's been, Reddit posts with videos talking about what I would do if you could bring back, BlackBerry 10 OS, and it's going to have generative apps and UI. You don't need to worry about ecosystem with where the world's going. And I'm like, I love it, but there's a difference between, pipe dreams and a plan, and there's realities of building. And I think the key thing I'm looking at here is a very sober approach to how you could bring back a BlackBerry device and probably offer it in two flavors. One that has Android for people who just want Google services, and then one where you actually have a very purpose-built device. If you think about, maybe you think about enterprise and government and places where compliance matters first, it's cut its teeth and can cater to that market again. But then for individuals who care about privacy, security, all these things, there's a lot of that. I mean, you look at how many users Proton Mail has and how many people are on DuckDuckGo as their search engine. Huge numbers. The world is shifting in this direction.
Just alone, every time these new Pixel phones come out, anytime any Android phone comes out, I get people like, I'm going to get it and de-Google it as quickly as possible. I'm like, you're going to de-Google a Google phone. And it just in my brain, I'm just like, okay. But I mean, I get the idea. I don't know how possible it is completely de-Google, because people are worried about what's happening with their data, where all their information is going, what's being monitored. And that was a huge thing when we went from BlackBerry 10 to Android on the BlackBerries, because people were like, I don't want Google. I'm not getting an Android BlackBerry. I'm not giving up my privacy and all those different things. So, let's say if you have a more security-based option, and that's what BlackBerry was a long time ago. It was just a secured communication platform to get work done and to facilitate communication. It was not a modern smartphone, which, I mean, it did evolve that route, and I appreciated that. But, I mean, my very first BlackBerry was a 7100G in 2005.
There you go.
I mean, you couldn't do a whole lot on there.
No, you're right. I mean, I think maybe people forget it now, and this question came up to me recently, and it was sort of like, what was the draw to BlackBerry in the beginning? Like, there were other devices, there was Palm Trios, and, there were Windows devices. And even when the iPhone came out, it didn't have the same association with celebrities and politicians and business people that BlackBerry did. And I think the reason at the start was that it was about the communication aspect of the BlackBerry. They invented push email, the quickest messaging device, right? Before that, you would open your email app, which was checking pop mail every 15 minutes, killing battery life, whether there was an email there or not. So you could send me a message and I might get it 14 minutes later, 5 minutes later, and then I send you one and you get it 5 minutes later. So it was really push email that freed people from their office computer, because now they could work at the speed of, lightning speed of business from anywhere in the world. And I think it became, how I think of it, as almost a business class tool, right? You got on an airplane in those early days of BlackBerry, and everybody at the front of the plane had a BlackBerry because they were the people benefiting from the speed of communication. And then as they went into the consumer market, well, you had this brand halo effect, because the people who were at the front of the plane are now, I could get the device too, and I could have it, and it makes sense. And then the game changed with big screens and apps.
Man. When I had my 7100 on my hip, and I was out because I was in the military back then, I'd be out away from my computer. I'd be out doing field work and different things. I could reply to messages. I could keep up on things, and it was great. But one of the other big things that just made it so popular in the consumer segment back then, remember we used to get charged for text messages? And then they created BlackBerry Messenger, and it's like, we'll just send, it was basically a precursor to iMessage. We just circumvented the whole system and send as many free messages as you want to anybody.
Yeah, BBM was the way, the 100%. So I think BlackBerry benefited from that in the beginning, and to this day, when you look at a BlackBerry, you think about it, you still have this brand thing, and that I'm very, I recognize a lot that as much as some people love the BlackBerry brand, for others it's baggage. There's a lot of people who, no matter what, will think like, leave it in the past, dinosaur. So it's always a question of like, do you even need the BlackBerry brand? Is it going to help you as much as you think? But for me, it comes down to, I don't know. It's a brand relationship that's always spoke to me. I love it. It doesn't, the dream I have does not interfere with the other businesses I'm building and growing. But if I could make it happen, that's what I want to do. And what's been really interesting is, by launching the Bring Back BlackBerry campaign and getting it out to the world now, my belief every minute that we can make it happen is just going up, because every day it's like I shook a BlackBerry tree or a BlackBerry bush, and all these berries are falling out. And my emails have been, filling up from people who want to help, because it's not one person it's not one person who's going to do it. It's going to take a coalition. And I've had ex-BlackBerry people who absolutely know all of the things reaching out saying they would love to help, because remember, that mobility division is not there these days. Mm-hmm. On the investment side, I've had really amazing people reach out who are getting behind the mission at a financial level, at a partnership level. People who used to be, I used to be the number one seller of Bez servers for BlackBerry for years. I know where all the government and I know where all the business customers are still to this day. These people are coming together, and I can absolutely make it happen, right? Like, delivering the product is there. We've been building the supply chain side of this and the manufacturing side of this now for years. Like you mentioned in your last show, we have a lot of ex-BlackBerry people either involved daily or kind of on speed dial for whenever they're needed, including, the industrial designers who literally designed these phones, that know exactly what they've done, the tens of thousands of hours in perfecting these things. And not that you need to build something in the past, but build a modern version of a BlackBerry that works from both a hardware perspective and thinking about software side. So it takes ambition, which I think I'm hopefully getting across that I have. It takes a team, which we've been building. It's going to take partners, which are now coming in. Everything takes money and time on the back of it too, which is beefing up. And then the last thing that I need is obviously a CEO and team at a certain company to think this isn't I'm going to call it a batshit crazy idea, whether today they think it's a good idea or not. Because and the reality is, this could happen in 13 months. It could happen in 13 years. It's going to be on them to decide if they want to let it happen at some point. But I think what won't help is if you just go in directly, because I know people who've done this since even Onward Mobility, and if you go and ask, what the answer is going to be? No, we don't do that anymore. We have no desire to do that. Like that's just it.
Yeah.
So to me, the only way we make it happen is to get the community involved. I want 1 million signups as the starting point, so I can prove real demand. Build the economic model behind it. Keep progressing down both paths of hardware and software in parallel tracks, knowing that literally we can execute on this thing, and when the time comes, make it happen. And I'm not in a rush. I'd rather it happen in, say, 13 months than 13 years. But at the end of the day, I've outlasted the original BlackBerry co-founders and CEOs. I outlasted Torsten Heinz in the BlackBerry 10 era. CrackBerry Kevin has outlasted John Chen. Joe's in there now. I wish him all the best and a long, happy career. But you know what's going to happen when there's somebody else? CBK will still be here, and I won't stop till I'm able to make it happen. So I might be a little old man when it happens, but I don't know if you saw a couple
so
days.
We don't have too much arthritis.
Hopefully, not too much arthritis. And funny enough, Commodore, the computer brand. This week, there's an announcement that they actually bought all of the trademarks of Commodore,
I saw that.
basically
Yeah,
from the
cool.
fan group, right? So dreams can come true once you dream them. But you have to set audacious goals and dream big, and I think that's what we've started now. So this is very, very early into the public piece of this campaign. I'm really excited with the results so far. We're still closer to 0 people than 1 million, but we are now well into the 5 figures of signups, on the way to 6 figures. And I'm like, not a lot of time has gone past, and literally have put very minimal time into getting the word out, right? This is all starting just within the community, but every day it's getting a little bit wider and wider, and we'll kick things into high gear as the weeks and months go on now. So
We did a little quick change here, real quick. Change of scenery for Kevin, and my headset died, so I got something else going on here. But talking about, I think that it's really important to get the BlackBerry logo, because there are other physical keyboard phones that are out there. You've got Unihertz, you've got other people trying to do stuff, you got the minimal phone. There's other things that have come up, and that's fine. We're in an age where you can do kind of those boutique devices. But I think that for me, it really has. I think it has to have the logo. I think the logo and the DNA that's there really is important to, one, people caring about it, and it being a spirited successor.
I agree with you. I mean, if you go back to the heyday of BlackBerry, I remember seeing the annual reports that came out with, the world's most valuable brands, the most recognized brands. And I can't remember the highest BlackBerry got to. I want to say it was like number 14 or 13 on the list behind, Coca-Cola and whatever, Apple, Ford, blah, blah, blah. But way, way up there. And you almost have to be pretty hard pressed to find a person on the planet who hasn't heard of BlackBerry, or when you say the word, you have a vision in your head of what generally you're looking at, and it's going to be something that looks like this is in their head, right?
Hmm.
And I think what it shows is BlackBerry today doesn't derive any of its $2 billion market cap from that brand value. So
Hmm.
to me, it's a bit of a disservice to humanity and the world to not take advantage of something that's so incredibly hard and rare to create, which is emotion tied to a brand. I mean, what is a brand? A brand is a promise, right? You see it, and there's this you know what it stands for. There's a reputation behind it, and it evokes emotion. So okay, so BlackBerry has the brand. Now, what is a company made of? It's made of people. It's made of IP, intellectual property. It's made of obviously process and customers. Now, they don't have the IP anymore. They don't have the people to build the product anymore, and they don't have the customer base tied to that valuable brand. Those are all
Hmm.
gone things. Now, in my case, it's like, well, I've got the people to build with. I've got the IP that I need. I can get more of if I need. I have a customer base, and we have a community here of people who understand what it means, and it's much bigger. We have a core community, and then there's a much bigger global community that we can get back to. So I think it would be it just feels wrong to me that this isn't going to happen. And I understand why maybe as a company they said, well, we tried it a couple times with TCL and Onward, and it didn't work so well. But I think this is a different game we're playing at now, a different time. And I think the space in the world of smartphones is really much better suited. I mean, if I look at this notion of how you said the pendulum swung a bit too far, I think it's swinging back. And to your point, I always think everything comes back to that 80-20 rule at some point, Pareto efficiency. And right now, I don't know what the percentage of people on, let's say, non-iOS, non-Android devices is, but it's definitely not 20%. It's probably less than 1% who are on de-Googled operating
Yeah.
systems and things like that. And arguably, it should be a bigger number. But I think what happens is there's a lot of fragmentation among the
Hmm.
people who are trying to go after that. And you're never able to hit a concerted um, effort and a critical mass big enough to get you moving the pendulum back in a meaningful way to where it probably should be and where it feels like the market almost wants it to go. So I think if you had the ability to have the BlackBerry brand for all the reasons you kind of stated, and then with a really compelling solution behind it, that's awesome. And you're not going to get it probably on your first device. It's going to take
Hmm.
cycles and times to get it there. But I think, it takes somebody to kickstart it and bring in the people and the money and have the ambition and just pull it all together and be relentless and not stop. And I'm that guy, right? So I will push for it. And will I succeed? I don't know, but I know I won't stop until I am there. And hey, I'm a BlackBerry shareholder, so worst case scenario, if they won't take a meeting from me, I'll be showing up at the annual general meeting of shareholders next year with my signature list and a microphone and probably a T-shirt that says "Bring Back BlackBerry." And they'll be forced to listen to me. So, it's all good things. I want to do things on the up and up here, but I won't stop, and I'll be absolutely relentless until we get what we want, and we have a new BlackBerry.
Yeah, and that's what we want. We want a BlackBerry, and it's like I want a stinking BlackBerry again.
Yeah, same.
I was like, that's what I want. That's
And
all I want.
I like the projects. Look, like Zinwa doing retrofits, I think is
That's
awesome. But I
cool.
think I think it's a project, and I think it's for us hardcore people. I bought one right away. Other devices on the market that are playing in the space, that's cool. Like I think this category is so big. There's probably room for everybody to be successful in it. But the mission for me, I want to see BlackBerry happen, and I think from a viability perspective what we've been proving with apostrophe, what we've been proving with clicks, and even apostrophe aside, if you just think Android OS um, or with Google, I think there is a market there, and you can do it in a way that is step by step, right? I think part of the reason, as we talked about, say onward mobility before, is if you try to go too fast all at once you can burn through a lot of money really quick. And if you don't get the results you need day one, you're done,
You're
right?
screwed.
Like
Yeah.
it's just done. You're screwed. And I think what we've been doing since 2022 is taking the baby steps. You crawl before you walk, before you run. And what this Bring Back BlackBerry dream gives me personally is this finish line of how all these things come together. And really, it's the life's work of CrackBerry Kevin from number one fanboy and tech media business builder to flipping to the side now, and it's still CrackBerry Kevin, but now it's BlackBerry builder. So that's what I'm aiming for, and for people listening, obviously you can hit bringbackblackberry.com, sign up if you haven't, spread the word if you haven't. That's huge. But if there's a way to help the mission, and the movement, reach out to Kevin at crackberry.com. I've been talking to a lot of people. There's so many passionate people out there, and some people have very specific ways they can help and contribute, whether it's knowledge or network or financial resources. For some people, they just want to express ideas in that. I mean, if this episode gets 4,000 or 40,000 or 400,000 people listening, they probably all will have a different idea for what the plan should be. So I can't respond to all those emails, maybe,
Yes,
but
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 important story. If you reach out, don't be offended if somebody doesn't get back to you or doesn't get back to you immediately. There's a lot of people have been reaching out, and it's amazing. And thank you so much.
well, I appreciate the time. To tell the story. Probably could have done it in been more BlackBerry efficient, and we could have told it in 15 minutes. But I know this is the audience that wants to hear the details, and you know where to reach me, Adam, if you ever want to talk more on this. But appreciate you spreading the word and doing your part. And obviously, Need your feedback every step of the way.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the problem here is that Kevin and I both like to talk a lot. So what happens in all of this is we talk a lot, and we get to the end of the journey. There's just a lot of stops at convenience stores along the way before we get to Wally World. So hopefully this was as helpful and insightful, and like Kevin said, maybe it could be done in 13 months, but I wouldn't plan on that. Maybe it could take 13 years. But ultimately, what he's trying to do here is do it the right way to make it work.
Appreciate that. And look at all the, I think for anybody listening to this point, they're obviously hardcore. And, I think when you look back at, there's many right answers, right? There's not just usually one right answer, and there's many wrong answers too, many paths to doing this. And over the years, I have been watching like all the projects, all the things that are out there, whether it's like bring back BlackBerry 10 OS and make it live, and you know, there's so much info that I think a lot of people have bits of info, and then you want to assume the rest is easy, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like the realities of building are crazy. Like you want to fire up BlackBerry 10 again? Yeah. The annual cost to turn the lights on that baby is insane, and it's not going to solve your app ecosystem equation, which we talked about before, right? As being a big part of
No,
the problem of what
and the
happened.
thing is what's the point of putting a modern chipset in one of these phones to still not have any support for anything?
Well, exactly. But what's crazy is like if I look at, well, you could look back and say BlackBerry 10. To this day, you can fire up an old BB10 device, and other than things aren't going to work really the way you want them to, the actual like baseline performance
It's
is
smooth.
really good off of the hardware that's in there,
Hmm.
because it's just so pure and clean. And we experience the same thing with apostrophe devices when there is none of the bloat of Google Android in there. The batteries last forever. You can have pretty low specs and have tremendous performance, and it's like, oh, it's funny, half the need for cutting edge hardware all the time is just because the software keeps growing
Oh,
and
it's such a
growing.
resource hog.
But if you get back to something more purpose built for the audience you're building for, you have more options, and it's not about specs. It's about, does the thing deliver on the promise that you're building for the customer who's going to use it for what they're looking for. And I think that's something that's totally achievable. And I've had some people sending in emails already of like, here's what a dream BlackBerry should look like. And I'm like, okay,
That's your dream.
so I'm going to need $300 million right now, and
Yeah.
we can get to work on this. But the minimum order quantities for that processor and that camera lens and that antenna that you want with that design material, I'm like, that's a different story. And it's tough. Like you look at somebody who's most recently done the best job of building a new smartphone brand, and we'll probably say the same name if we say nothing.
Hmm.
Um, you know, they've been around for several years now.
Hmm.
And I still think if you walk down this, pick your US city, walk down the street and you ask somebody if they know what a nothing phone is, still no. Like in the tech community, it's well known. There's
Yeah,
certain
but
countries where it's well known. They have really cool attention getting hardware, but it's that hard of a business, right? To break
mhm.
through on, which is why if you can get
If you get that
this,
back out, people know what it is, even
yeah,
without it ever having
yeah,
one.
exactly. So method to the madness, but won't be easy. But I hope we can make it happen. So hopefully somebody from
Well,
BlackBerry watches this and they understand how serious we are, and that can't stop, won't stop, and
we do
it will be
business.
mine. It will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine.
Yeah, and then by virtue, ours, everyone's.
It's ours. No, it's the community. It's absolutely for the community. Like I said, we can go without it, but this is the life's work, is to make this happen.
And I think it's important. I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle, and I think that's definitely a reason to people in Waterloo should take this serious.
They're not even in Waterloo now. I think they're in California, Texas, and all
Are
over.
they?
But it's
Oh, whatever. Used to
John.
the people that used to
John
be in Waterloo.
exactly. So, there's probably some. There is still some there, but yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. But for those of you who watched it all the way to the end, you're saints, and uh, certainly appreciate you watching. And thanks, Kevin, for being here. And I'm sure we'll do this again. Hopefully, at some point in some time in the future, we'll have more things to talk about and share more things with the community. But I thought this was a good opportunity to kind of have the Bring Back BlackBerry petition is great, but to be able to sit here and you talk and have this discussion and tell people, okay, uh, I've been doing some research. I have avenues available to me to make this happen. Let's try and make it happen. I think that means a lot to people.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the support, everyone.
Yes, thank you for the support, and we're gonna stop talking. So as always, and of course, you can tell people where they can find you on your social or email or
CrackBerry
whatever.
Kevin, all the places. Yeah, I think it's just look CrackBerry Kevin on Insta and LinkedIn and Twitters and X's and Threads.
Yep, and y'all are here, so you already found me. So we're gonna get out of here. Subscribe if you want to, and see you guys next time.